Hola, estudiantes. In this video, we're going to explore the stem changing verbs for the subjunctive in the present tense for Leaving Cert Spanish. Hi guys, Dave here from myteacherdave.com, where we help students of Junior Cert and Leaving Cert Spanish reach their potential and ultimately enjoy great success in their state exams. Bueno, guys, let's explore exactly what we're going to cover in this class in a little bit more detail. So this is the plan for this class. Firstly, we are going to very quickly review the present subjunctive endings that we did cover in the previous video, but because they're so important, we're going to just review them very quickly. Then we're going to really roll our sleeves up and get stuck into this topic, which is what we call radical change in verbs, or basically those verbs that the stem of the verbs have to be modified. Yeah. Just to remind you that the changes that you see in the subjunctive, they don't just, fall from the sky. They're actually very systematic. They actually occur in the present tense, the normal present tense, and they're kind of, if you like, copy and pasted across to a degree in the subjunctive. As you might already have an idea, there are lots and lots of verbs in Spanish, unfortunately, that are irregular or have irregularities in the present tense, have these stem changing verbs in the present tense. And we're going to kind of organize them into 5 simple groups for us. So we take one group, one set at a time, and we break this whole topic down for ourselves. So these are the endings for our present subjunctive that we saw in our previous class. We know that the endings for the subjunctive in the present tense are the opposite to what we would normally expect. In other words, AOR verbs all have like an E in the endings, and ER and IOR verbs, they're kind of put into one group, and they all have A in their endings. Now, for those of you who haven't covered this, who haven't seen this, you can head across to the website. I'll leave a link below in the description for you. So it'll be myteacherdave.com/leaving cert Spanish subjunctive regular verbs. And what you'll see on that page, it's an article, a blog article. You have your video tutorial that explains everything, goes into detail, but simplifies everything for you. You have a little quiz there that you can actually test your own understanding. And like a lot of students, you can enjoy reading a little bit about it. You're going to see a lot in the video, but lots of people do enjoy reading the information as well. So everything is broken down into these kind of colorful little chunks for you on that web page. So that's the introduction, or sorry, that's the regular verbs. But we've also covered another topic which introduces the subjunctive for us at Leaving Cert level. So again, we have the usual things. We have our video tutorial. We have our quiz to test ourselves on as a fundamental part, and then we have the part there for reading, getting a little bit deeper into it. You can take your notes, you can download the information, all that kind of thing in there. So this class was all about the uses, not how we conjugate the subjunctive, but more just the uses of the subjunctive. So I would recommend that you go across and bring yourself up to speed if you haven't seen this already. For those of you who have, excelente estudiantes, vamos a continuar. So well done, guys. We're going to continue. So back to our opposite endings. Yeah. So if you've gone over there and you've gone through all that, you're really up to speed about these opposite endings. Yeah. So it's nice for us to kind of refresh this information. As you well know, one of the challenges of learning any languages is actually it's a memory game. You're trying to remember the things that you studied before. That's why we refresh and refresh and refresh. Muy bien. So our topic today, guys, our stem change in verbs, our radical change in verbs. We have, as we said, 5 groups, and we're going to take each group step by step. So group 1, again, I would be out with my notes here, taking things down like you would in school in a normal class. You can pause. That's the benefit here. You can pause, you can rewind if you didn't actually get what I was explaining. You can go back again, no problem. That's a normal process. So group 1, the irregularity or the change occurs right throughout the verb. We've got 2 changes, 2 things that actually occur to the root. One is where an E changes to an I, and in the other category, in this subcategory here, we're not changing anything. We're actually just adding in a Y that wasn't there in the original verb, yeah, in the infinitive of the verb. So let's kind of unpack this a little bit. So if we take the verb pedir, we can see that in the infinitive here, there's an E. Okay, that's what we mean by an E changes to an I. We start with the E in the infinitive. We know then that in order to make the present subjunctive, we always start with the normal present tense I part or the yo part of the verb. And we can see that with this verb pedir, which means to request or to ask for, in the normal present tense, it's pido, no problem. We can see that that change there has gone from an E in the infinitive to an I where it's actually conjugated. The brilliant thing is here, all we have to do is follow our little 3 steps again, as we would normally do. We cut off our O, that would give us pid. We can see that it's an IOR verb, so the opposite endings apply here, which are going to be our AOR endings. So that's brilliant. And we said here that this irregularity goes right throughout the whole verb. So that would give us then, for I, pida. For you, pidas. He, she, it, or usted as well, pida. For we, pidamos. For ye, or you, plural, pidais. And for they, or also, ustedes, which is formal you, plural, pidan. So for the second little subgroup here, where we add a Y, let's see a really typical verb. The verb fluir, yeah? So the verb fluir means to flow. Okay, again, we can see in the normal present tense, not the subjunctive, in the blue is the normal present tense. We can see that I flow, if you like, the yo part of the verb. All of a sudden, we've added a Y that wasn't in the original or the infinitive, as we call it. Notice, guys, there's a really clear category here. It's IOR verbs that have a U in front of them. That means that any verb that ends in I or and there's a U in front of them behave exactly this way. So you don't have to learn every single verb. All you have to learn is the category, yeah, and what actually happens in that category. And you can apply that to all the other verbs that fall into it. Muy bien. So we know, again, we can cut off our O now. Really handy. It's an IOR verb. So the opposite endings are going to be AOR endings. So that would give us then fluya, fluyas, fluya, fluyamos, fluyais, and fluyan. Now, logically speaking, I don't know, it's very hard for me to think of any circumstance where you would say I flow or you flow, but from a grammatical perspective, this is perfect. You could say things like the water flows, the milk flows, that kind of thing, no problem. Okay, so that's group 1 done. Group 2. So the irregularity or the change here in the stem is exactly the same as in the indicative. And the indicative is just a kind of a fancy term for the normal present tense. You have your subjunctive, yeah, and you have indicative. And indicative is the normal present tense. So again, we have 2 subcategories here. One is where we have a changer where an E becomes IE, And the other one is where an O becomes a UE. Now, I know as Leaving Cert students, you're fairly familiar with these changes. These are really common changes, aren't they? O to UE. You've seen them probably since, third year, I would say. So if we take the verb pensar, the verb to think or believe, we know that the E here in the infinitive becomes IE when you actually conjugate the normal present tense, which is pienso, I think, I believe. Brilliant verb for you when you're doing your opinion pieces and things like that. So what's actually going on here? Well, we can see that this here, we cut off our O, like we have to do, because our endings are the endings are the endings. We can't do anything about that. We're stuck with those endings. So we can see now that it's an AOR verb, and the endings are the opposite endings here are EOR endings. So they'll all have an E in them. So that would give us piense, yeah, pienses, piense. But notice in the normal present tense, we don't have changes in the nosotros, and we don't have changes in the vosotros, the ye part of the verb. So this change kind of, if you like, jumps over these two here. So that's what we mean by it's the irregularity occurs in the normal present tense. It occurs here as well. In other words, we wouldn't say piensemos or pienseis. That would be wrong. We need pensemos and penséis. Muy bien. And we can compare that to the first category where it's all the way down. We don't have to worry about anything here. It's just all the way down. Muy bien. So moving on then to our category of O to UE. And we'll use the verb poder, a quintessential Leaving Cert verb, isn't it? The verb can or be able to. So we move down, we know that as an O in the original, in the infinitive, and when we conjugate it in the normal present tense to say something like I can or I am able to is puedo. Yeah, so the O changes to UE, and we keep that now. That's our starting point. We know also we can cut off the O. It's an EOR verb, so we're adding AOR endings now in the subjunctive. So that would give us then pueda, puedas, pueda. Notice there's no irregularity in these two parts of the verb, in the we and the ye. It kind of jumps over. So we go back to our original root, podamos, podais, and the last one then, pueda. Okay, so the last category here, category 3 on this slide, we have the irregularity that occurs in the first person singular in the present tense. That's basically the yo part of the tense, or the I part of the tense. Well, that's actually carried on right through the verb. So we can see here, all of these would be really familiar to you. So we have the verb ver, veo, in the normal present tense. Brilliant. We have conozco, I know, the verb to know, to be acquainted with. Hago, I do. Hago mis deberes, I do my homework. Vengo, to come. Salgo, I go out. Digo, I say. Tengo, I have. And oigo, I hear. Muy bien. We'll take that. We'll cut off the O in all of them, but we'll keep the rest of it. In the normal present tense, we have the verb ver, and the first person singular, the yo part, is veo, no problem. And then it's veis, and then it, continues on down, ve, vemos, all that kind of thing. Well, we keep this here, and we cut off the O. We know that this is ver is an EOR verb, so we're looking for AOR endings, which are the opposite. And that's how we get things like vea. And when we say it's the irregularity is in all of the verbs all the way down in the subjunctive, that would give us vea, veas, vea, veamos, veáis, and vean. So that's what we mean by it's all the way down. Again, just to go back to everything, fundamentally for us, when we're conjugating verbs in the subjunctive, we start with the present tense of the normal verbs, and we can see that right the way through, and you're halfway there. So category 4 are concerned with verbs. They both both of these kind of subcategories end in aor, but there's a G or a C before the aor. So the actual changes that occur is a C becomes a QU and a G becomes a GU. Let's see really classic verbs for this. We've seen in our previous videos this verb being used, sacar. Sacar means to take out. So the normal present tense is saco. We cut off AO and we have our O, saco. Now, if we cut off our O, and we have to put in our E endings here because it's an AOR verb, and in the subjunctive, we have the opposite endings. We have to do that. We can't get away from that, yeah? Well, we can see now in this verb that that C in the original has to become a QU. I'm going to explain in a moment why. It's actually a pronunciation thing. So that would give us sake, saques, sake, saquemos, saquéis, and saquen. If we look at this super common verb, llegar, the verb to arrive, in the normal present tense, we have llego. We pop off this here. We know then we have this, it ends in G now, the stem ends in G. Well, we have to change that G to GU. Now, some people say, well, just pop in a U. That's fair enough. And that will give us then llegué, lleguéis, llegué, lleguemos, lleguéis, and lleguen. Now, the big question really, I suppose, is why are we doing all of this here? Well, there's a very, very logical reason for it. If we didn't change this here, let's imagine we have llegar. We know that it's llego, so we take off this O in the normal present tense and we just simply put on the E. If we didn't, what would happen? Well, we know that the letter C and the letter G in Spanish have two variations. A soft sound, we call it a hard sound. A soft sound is produced when this kind of occurs, when you have an E or an I after the C. So this pronunciation would be sassy. Now you've noticed there, we're after losing the original hard C sound, a k, 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 sakar sound. You can feel it in your throat there. Well, we need to maintain that. So what Spanish does is it looks for something else in the language, some other letters that can actually maintain the original sound, because we can't get away. We need to keep the E. They're the subjunctive endings. We can't get away from that. Likewise with the G here, the C and the G in Spanish is soft when it's followed by an E or an I, and the pronunciation is a hard, like a k, k or a g, g, when it's followed by an O, an A, or a U. Muy bien. So if we didn't add our GU in here, we would have a pronunciation of this one as yehe, which would be completely different to the original sound, and it would start to open up a lot of confusion in the language. So we have to basically keep this hard G sound. And how do we do that? Well, you can say we can change the G to a GU, or we can pop in a U, whatever suits you better. Point is, it can't be left like this. And that's why this change actually occurs here. And we see it not only actually in the present tense, but we see it in the past simple, the preterite tense as well. Okay, muy bien. We have one category left. We're flying through it. So category 5 is simply where we change a Z to a C. Now let's open this up a little bit. Muy bien. We have a very common verb at Leaving Cert level, comenzar. The verb to begin, to start, to commence, anything like that. In the present tense, normal present tense, we know it's comienzo, don't we? Or comienzo. Yeah, no problem. All we have to do is change that that Z to a C. And that gives us comience, comiences, comience, comencemos, comencéis, and comiencen. And just another example from this category, organizar. If you've never seen that verb before, if you've never studied Spanish, you can make a very educated guess that it means to organize. So, organizo with a Z in the normal present tense. That Z becomes a C in the subjunctive. So that gives us organice, organices, organice, organicemos, organicéis, and organicen. In this one here, the only change occurs is actually that Z to C. We can see it down there. The actual rest of the root stays the same. And over here, we can see that that IE goes down here also. So you have two things going on with these verbs. And the IE comes down here, jumps over this one and continues down, but the C continues all the way down. So guys, those are your 5 groups. You don't have to learn anything else in terms of stem changing verbs for present subjunctive. You have everything you need there. However, there is a fair bit of information here. So what I decided to do was to put it all together to kind of condense it down a little bit further for you into kind of one slide. So here we can see all of the 5 categories. We can see the change that happens in each, or the changes that happen in each category, and a couple of examples. So you've done lots and lots and lots of work, guys. You've listened to me, you've taken your notes, but there is another step to this process, and that's actually to roll your sleeves up and actually get stuck into it a little bit. So let's head across to the website. I'm going to leave a link down below where you can actually go and practice all of this in a quiz, but I'm going to help you with the first kind of 1 or 2. So here we are, guys. This is the free Spanish subjunctive page on my website, myteacherdave.com, where you can actually go in, roll your sleeves up. You can tackle all different sections of the subjunctive. For example, regular verbs, irregular verbs, that kind of thing. But the section that we're actually interested in is section 2. So we're going to look for those verbs that we've just studied. So we can see here we have the sentence, there's a gap, and there's a verb in brackets, and there's also, more often than not, there's an indication of who is doing the action in brackets. If it's not obvious from the sentence, we put it in the brackets as well to help us. So we can see here we have espero que, that classic subjunctive trigger. Espero que no me, and we have pedir, to ask, ellos, they, and we have cantar. So in English, what we're looking for basically is, I hope they don't ask me to sing. Now we know we start off with pido in the present tense of the normal present tense. This is an E to I verb change in verb, isn't it? So we knock off our O. We know it's they, and that gives us pidan. And we'll always check as we go along as well, because if there's any problems, you can kind of fix them as you go. So if we look at number 3 here, for example, we have no creo que Santa Claus, and then we have pensar en mí. I don't believe Santa Claus thinks about me. Probably gave me a terrible present last year or something. So we'll start off with the normal present tense as usual. We have pienso. Knock off your O. It's an AO verb, so we know that the opposite endings have to be used, and that gives us piense. So you follow that vein all the way down with these. So guys, there will be a link down below in the description of this video where you can actually go over, roll your sleeves up and complete the little quiz. Bueno, estudiantes, muchísimas gracias por la atención en este video. Guys, thanks very much for your attention in this video. If you feel that you know more now about the topic than you did when you came in, would you do me a favor and just pop me a little like down below? Bueno, chicos, nos vemos en el próximo video. Adiós.